Fine. So this is the second session of deep learning. In the first part, we talked about an introduction, the general discussions about what is deep learning, what is machine learning, and how it is different than deep learning. Why to use deep learning? Why not to use deep learning? Then what are the different trade-offs involved when we talk about the choice between machine learning and deep learning? So what are the different trade-offs? Then when we were concrete about that what we are doing is actually the fine, the comfortable thing, then we moved on to comparing the logic behind naming it as a deep learning and naming the major component of it as neural network. So we talked about what are neurons. We compared it basically with biological brain, the human brain. So we compared it with neurons, synapse, signal transfers, dendrites, axons. We talked about all of that. Then we similarly replicated the whole thing into neural network, that what are neurons, what are weights, what are bias, what is collection, what is summation, activation function, whether the neuron will fire or not fire, what are the different concepts over hidden layers, and we talked about single layer perceptron and multi-layer perceptron. I hope till module 1 and module 2 it is quite clear to both of you. So both the
Sir,
modules are,
hello.
yeah, yes,
Sir, I have basically doubt that in the every activation function there will be a activation graph. What
yeah.
it indicates?
So it indicates something like so an activation graph do nothing different than indicating you that what basically would be the value of activation which is on the y-axis corresponding to the value of what you give which is on the x-axis. So when you head over from x to y, what will be the change in the value? So activation function part will cover as well in depth, but for now on the basics part you can consider that activation functions graph would tell you the value of y corresponding to the value of x. This is what the graph into the activation function does.
Okay.
Yeah. So heading on to module 3, the first part, in the module 3 there are two parts basically, the Keras and TensorFlow. I'll tell you about TensorFlow, what TensorFlow is and what Keras is. So TensorFlow, people call it as machine learning library or deep learning library or deep learning framework. No, simply it is a number processing framework wherein it provides all the support for even matrix multiplication, matrix addition, normal vector addition, 3D matrix addition, multiplication, summation, subtraction, and everything regarding that. So it is generally a number processing library. And what is deep learning on the other hand? Deep learning is a kind of ping pongs with the numbers, the playground with the numbers, and in that basically what we do, we go for something like playing with the numbers in the form of weights, bias, and managing the big mess of numbers in the scale of thousands or millions or billions. And we manage these sort of numbers to form an equation at the back end that we call as a trained model, and that trained model is used for prediction. Now, because TensorFlow is a very optimized number processing library, it performs well than other platforms available for deep learning. So it can also be used for deep learning, but primarily TensorFlow is not just there for deep learning. Even it is used for other purposes like simulations, civil aviation, and all that stuff like where you need to work on big quantity of numbers. Suppose there is a dam construction going on and you need to simulate a lot of stuff like what will be the height of dam, what will be the flow of the water, what will be the machine strength and everything. So then you can even use TensorFlow, and it is already in use by energy industry, by civil industry, by aviation industry, and lot others. Then why particularly there are many other frameworks available for doing the same task as TensorFlow is doing for us. So the frameworks available are Theano, TensorFlow, and then PyTorch, and a lot others. So particularly why we are focusing on TensorFlow, because first thing is it is very much popular. Second thing, it is having a lot of updates, a lot of frequent updates as it is supported by Google. So the community behind it, the managers, you can say so-called managers of TensorFlow, are so much active into the development of development. Then third thing is that it has a lot of support at the back, and moreover it provides a lot of technical advantages over Theano or any other framework, something like parallel training. So what it means that instead of training your machine, I hope you both understand the concept that a machine when it gets a model when it gets trained, it exhausts the complete of your machine, and even if the model is so big to be trained, it'll take days or months or even a span of few months to get trained if you're actually training something big. Then what can be done? Simply that TensorFlow allows you to go for parallel and distributed training across different machines. So you have 10 to 12 machines, you can say the cluster of machines, and you are setting up the TensorFlow training over that, and whatever the result is coming up, it is being distributed over all the 12 systems. So that this thing is easily supported by TensorFlow actually. So comparatively easier to do in TensorFlow rather than any other framework. So that is the major reason why we need to go for TensorFlow. Coming on to the GPU part, so it do provides some other some optimized functions, some optimized tools, some optimized libraries for the people who are having GPU based system or who are working on GPU based cloud, and specifically for NVIDIA GPUs, NVIDIA graphics card. So if you are having a graphics card, TensorFlow would give you some special treatment. Speciality about the GPU support. Coming on to Keras, what is Keras now? What the heck is this? So Keras is a layer built over TensorFlow, and what do I mean by built over TensorFlow? Not just that the code is written over TensorFlow. Keras is something, a kind of upper level package which makes you the things handy, and at the backend you can choose TensorFlow or Theano. So Keras is something which came earlier than TensorFlow. Okay, so Keras is something older than TensorFlow, and at that time, before the, you can say, the launch or release of TensorFlow, there was only one thing, which is Theano. So Keras also supports Theano at the backend, and Keras also supports TensorFlow as the backend. So what do we need to work on is the front part, that how do we need to write the code, and then whatever backend we are using, Keras will take that particular code to the backend, which could be TensorFlow or Theano. I would better suggest you to go for TensorFlow, and I will even be going for the TensorFlow throughout this course. The reason for that I already stated, that instead of using Theano, which is not being in development since a lot of time, the things are not getting updated so easily. Nowadays, TensorFlow is getting in much use, and moreover, it is so much popular that around 67% of the Keras users, this is the statement by a lot many surveys, that around 65 to 70% of the Keras users use TensorFlow as the backend rather than using Theano. Even though Theano is the older version, Theano is the older thing, TensorFlow is the newer thing, but still TensorFlow has more popularity because of its great support, parallelism, and lot many other handful stuff. And it is comparatively more flexible than using Theano. But we'll be using TensorFlow for all the same reasons. Okay, and on the front layer we'll be using Keras. So what does it mean? That we will be writing our code on the packaged layer of Keras. This you will get very soon. So you will be writing the code as per the Keras syntax, not as per the TensorFlow syntax. So that Keras syntax code would definitely go to the backend and get converted into the TensorFlow syntax, just like you write the code into C++ or Python or R or Java, and it gets converted into binaries and then gets executed. So that is what we will be going to follow across the course. Now what is your task I had given you is to install Keras and TensorFlow in your system. So I hope it is installed in your system. Just go for a message to me whether it be yes or no. Do you have both Keras and TensorFlow installed in your system? And if you want to check, you can check with the command pip show TensorFlow and pip show Keras. If it gives some output, that means you have these systems installed in your system and installed in your environment. So both of these are installed in your system, Mehak? And what about you, Raghunathan? The Keras and TensorFlow, both of these are installed or not?
So I have installed
Both of them?
Sir.
Okay. Don't you have Keras
Sir,
with you?
I will check, sir.
Yeah, check for that. Otherwise, you can simply install by pip install Keras. And it is not a big task to install, though the files are a bit more bigger, it will consume a bit more of extra internet of yours, but the commands are very simple that you need to go to command prompt. Okay, you need to write pip and pip3 in case of me because I use the Python 3 and Python 2 both environments. Pip3 install Keras and it will install the things if it is not already installed. Just make some changes. Already the things are already installed. The things are already installed to me, but we'll just checking up for cache and all. Done. So I can now check for pip3 show Keras.
So I have using Anaconda, sir.
You're using Anaconda, then you can do the same thing over Anaconda prompt, or you can install it from the terminal of Anaconda. It will work the same way.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have installed, we know how to install it, and we already have the installed part. I get something. Wait. Yeah, it is working. It is fine. Clear. So now let us go back to a basic recall of what we have done yesterday. And for that again I'll be coming up to my paint tool for this. Well, so what we'll be going to do now is we have something like the structure of neural network. That is what we need to recall basically. So for that we again need to draw the same thing, that we'll be having neurons in the input layer, then some neurons in the hidden layer 1, hidden layer 2, okay. So this is what my input layer looks like, and this is what my output layer looks like, right? And if I connect all the neurons with each one of them in the previous and next node, and I told you for this particular dense connection, mesh topology type connection, I'll be using this arrows. Okay, this means the dense connection, and this will be following across the course. Now this architecture is also known as 3, 2, 4, 2 fully connected neural network. This is how it is represented. That means 3 nodes in the input layer, 2 nodes in the first hidden layer, 4 nodes in the second layer, and 2 nodes in the output layer. This is known as 3242 fully connected neural network. And if the architecture would be something like this, it will be known as 3342 fully connected neural network, and so on. This is the way we basically we use a terminology when it comes to neural network. I hope till this we are very clear about the topic, and we are comfortable about what is Keras, what is TensorFlow. Again, I'll repeat the things. TensorFlow is a number processing framework which is highly used in the domain of deep learning because of various reasons. One reason is that it is having a lot of support. Another reason is that it is having a lot of development facilities, like it can give you the practicalities of parallel distributions of training in like just a function or so. Need not to work hard on the code part. Then moreover, it is supported by Google, so it is having a lot of popularity. And whatever doubt you'll be having about TensorFlow, suppose you stuck in some moment of time and you just need to ask it on Google, and people would be there to solve you out because a lot of people are actually working over it. And yeah, these are the basic things that why we particularly need to use TensorFlow. And then what is Keras? So Keras is the layer bound over TensorFlow to be worked on, and so we'll be writing the code into the Keras part, and what we'll be getting is the output which has been executed on the TensorFlow part by its own. We haven't done anything. Okay, in order to check whether your Keras is using TensorFlow at the backend or Theano at the backend, you need to go to your terminal. Okay, just write, just open a Python shell with Python or Python 3 or whatever, or make any file or do whatever you want to do to execute a Python script. Right here, import Keras. Now when you click this, when you enter this, it will say you using TensorFlow backend and some other stuff, some sort of metadata and the feature warnings and all. So it is saying using TensorFlow backend, not Theano backend. If it is saying Theano backend, then you need to reconfigure that. But right now it is saying use it in TensorFlow backend. Just check that and confirm me back, and then we will move on. Check this on your end. If it is using TensorFlow as the backend or Theano as the backend, and then confirm me back, and then we will move on ahead. Okay. Fine. So if it is having TensorFlow as the backend, that is like we are having the things already configured with us. Although we need to install some other packages like H5py and Pillow and pre-processing and a lot more stuff, but not as of now. So now our first task would be to write a neural network of our own and to get it executed on the system. So we'll be learning through what are the concepts, what are the line of code required to write the neural network, and then we will understand the mathematics behind that. I'll just close both of my terminals. Well, so what needs to be done in order to work on the system? I used to work on my desktop most of the time. So I'll just make a file here. You can make it wherever you want to. So I'll make a file with basic neural network.py, and let us see how does the file looks like. It's a blank file. Now what is our first task into this? We need to import Keras. Okay, and what do we need to import from Keras? We need to import model, which is sequential model for our model part. Okay, and then we need to import layers. So which layer particularly we'll be using? We will be using dense layer. We do not go for convolution or recurrence or anything as of now. We'll be going for dense layer. Now leaving this apart, this is what we need to use in the near future. Leaving this apart, what is the first step when we talk about any machine learning or deep learning architecture? What is our first step? How does it looks like? What we need to do for the very first thing? Just try to recall your machine learning concept or whatever, wherever you have worked with machine learning or deep learning. Try to recall what we need to do for the very first part. What is our very first task when we work on deep learning or machine learning architecture? Go for the audio. If I hope you do not have any noise at your back, so just unmute yourself, it'll be fine, and just suggest something that what could be the very first step.
Import data.
Importing data, or yes, something like the 1.1 step would be importing data, but step number 1 in big picture would be importing the data, pre-processing it and making it ready. So we basically need 4 things: xtrain, ytrain, xtest, ytest. Fine. Importing packages are the first line of code, which is not I am much interested in as of now. So our first logical step would be to get the data prepared to be passed on to machine learning. So as if this is our beginning part and we are not working on any commercial scales, so we can take any Kaggle data and we'll be working on that. I hope you both are aware of Kaggle and you must have downloaded some data from Kaggle. But for now I'll just take some basic data. So suppose I would go for wine quality prediction, or as of now let's just go for iris. Okay, so it is having ID, sepal length, width, and then again one petal length and then width, and let me check where I can scroll up from. Okay, and then it has some categories. Now if it has 3 categories, these are written into text format. What can we do in order to convert them into numerical format? We can go for the label encoding. But if we even go for some more simplistic data, let us suppose I'll go for something else. Just suggest me some good data if you have worked on. Otherwise, I'll go for my choice. Let's go for the diabetes data. TMA Indian diabetes data. This one. Let's go to start database. Let's go for this, and I'll show you what it is all talking about. So it would be having 9 columns with some other feature name, and then at the last it has outcome, which is either 0 or 1. So it has 268 1, and it has 500 zeros. Okay, so 268 and out of 768 are 1 and the other are 0. Now let us download this particular file. Okay, and I'll just be using this on my wagon. Fine, so this is the data I'll need to work on. So I'll just take it out. I don't want to get into folders and extractions and all. So this is where my data is lying, and this is what my neural network looks like. Now heading off to the neural network part, the Python file part, I need to firstly import pandas. Okay, I'll be rushing through these concepts, assuming that you know that. If you do not, just you can raise your voice and ask me the things. Now what I'll be doing is I'll be going for pd.readcsv to load this data. The name is diabetes.csv. Okay, and let's print df. I hope you are very much clear with what I have written. About each and every single word you are very much clear with. Okay, so we are having 5 rows out of 9 columns, into which the outcome is the label actually. So let us split label and features. So I'll go for y is equals to df.drop. Sorry.
Can you send the data set?
Okay, I'll send it, but otherwise you can also check it from Kaggle. I'll just send it right here. There it is. So what I want into y is the outcome, and what I want into x is df dot drop. I hope this thing is clear to like this thing is completely clear what I have written and what it is executing. Each and every word, each and every line. I hope that this is very clear to you. Is it or not? Didn't get any voice. Yeah. Okay. So now what we need to do is we are ready with our label and feature split. Another part we need to go for the train test split basically, right? So for that we need something like from sklearn dot model selection for train test split as TDS. Okay, now I need to write like extend test action. And you can check the shapes. Fine, so let us execute this and see what we have split it off. So earlier we had the data of 768, 8. and again 768 comma 1 as our y, or simply 768. We split it into 576 comma 8. Okay, my bad, I did something wrong. No, it is fine. Okay, so x train is 576 comma 8, x test is 192 comma 8, and on the other hand, y train and y test is 576 and 192. So our data is splitted clearly, and we are having x train, x test, y train, y test for our model part. Now this is what else. This is all the things which you need to work with the data. We're done with the data part. Now coming on to the model, next thing always comes up, the algorithm. Whether it be machine learning, we go for sklearn. If it is deep learning, we will go for TensorFlow or Keras or stuff. So we'll start with from sklearn dot models import sequential, and from sklearn dot layers import dense. Fine, and we instantiate that. We create an object. Now it's our task to add the layers into the model. So we'll add our first layer, and we go for it like a dense layer with the size suppose 10, and we need to give the input dimension before that. So we'll give the input dimension to be, so how many, what will be the input dimension? 8, because we have 8 features into our data set, and corresponding to that we need to calculate one label out of it. And we go for some activation function, let it be ReLU. Fine, so this is how our first layer looks like. First hidden layer.
What does this df.drop does?
Okay, so df.drop will basically drop a column or a row. So df.drop will basically, as the name is drop, so it will be used to drop something. Now what can be dropped is specified by this axis. Axis is equals to 1 means the column, x is equals to 0 means the row. So what we are dropping, we want to drop a column. Which column? Which is mentioned right here. So we want to drop the outcome column, as it is not the part of feature. So rest of the things will be placed into x. Okay, so x will now have all the columns but not outcome. Well, so the last line I have written will be the basically first hidden layer of our neural network, and the input layer would be of 8 neurons simply. Let's add 2 more layers into it. I'll go for 12, and then I go for again activation. Suppose 9, and the outcome layer, output layer. So what will be the size of output layer? 1, because we will be having either 0 or the 1 right here, and our activation function would be sigmoid. The reason is we want either the value to be 1 or the value to be 0. That is it. We don't need anything else. Now this is how our model simply looks like. Now our next task would be to compile the model. So
Hello.
Yeah, Raghunathan, yes.
I have one doubt. In
Yeah.
our foot line, what does the 10 indicates?
What does the
10 indicates. You have 10, you have pass parameters, dense layers inside a parameter. You have passed a 10 and
okay, so this
input.
thing you are saying, this thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the number of neuron in the first hidden layer. So all the layers right here, all the model.add function are basically contributing to layers. So we have an input layer of dimension 8. Apart from that, we have hidden layer 1, hidden layer 2, hidden layer 3, and the output layer. So our neural network is basically of 1 input, 3 hidden, and 1 output layer. So we basically have 2 plus 3, 5 layers in our neural network. So the architecture would be 8. I'll draw it on the board. 8, 10. Okay, so we'll be having 8 nodes, 10 nodes, then we'll be having 12 nodes, 9 nodes and 1 node. This is how our architecture is looking like. This is what it signifies. 10 means number of nodes, input dimension is 8, activation would be ReLU. Then dense layer 12, activation would be ReLU, activation ReLU again with 9 nodes, and activation sigmoid for 1 node. Okay. This is what the meaning of. Okay. So if you yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. You have used that in output layer. You have used that sigmoid activation function. Why you have not use ReLU?
Okay, I'll come to this. I'll come to this. Just let me write all the things, and then I'll come to this. Okay. About what all I have written, I'll explain each and every single topic right here. Now let us go for the compilation model.compile. We need to specify a few things that what to be improvised. We need to improvise loss, and what sort of loss we need to improvise binary cross entropy, because we have 1 and 0 right here, so it is a binary cross entropy. OPY. Okay.
If we were splitting this data set into 3 parts, like for test and training and development set, then the TTS जो है X train Y train वाला line, उसके अंदर what would we write? Like हमने अभी test size दिया 0.25 का.
So that means that our data would get into 75% for training and 25% for testing.
Yeah. Okay. So अगर मुझे development set भी डालना हो इसमें तो?
But how will you get the development side on your with your Y test value or Y development value? Like whenever we talk about development data, the production scale data, then you never had the label of it. If you have the label, then there is no sense of making something to be predicted. Right?
Why do we use development set basically?
Actually, so there are 3 things basically: training, validation, and testing.
Yeah.
Or we call it training, validation, and inference. But development is something which, so suppose the first thing is training. We trained the data and we evaluated on the validation part, and we again re-updated our network or the weight or hyperparameters or whatever we are working on. Then we again train the data. If it is performing well on the validation part, we test it on the test part. Okay. Otherwise, even with the simplest architecture of train and test, we can achieve the same thing. What
then
we
why
need to
do we use?
That is one or the other way of implementing the end result. Not accuracy. See, the more number bits would be there, the more you are compromising for your train part. Just try to understand. If there are 1,000 rows into it, I have already removed 25% of it. So now I am only left with 750 rows. And you already would be knowing that the greater the size of the data, the better would be the accuracy. So if you go for more and more and more splits, it will not at all be providing you the quantity of data to work on. So better to go with lesser number of splits and to learn how to understand the results of these splits and the results of performance on these splits. Okay, rather than splitting the data, just try to change yourself, not the data. Okay, if you'll change the formatting of data, if you'll change the size of data, then you'll actually land up in lesser number of rows. Okay, so into model.compile, we need to basically pass 2-3 things on the bare minimum. We'll be passing on the loss, then we'll be passing on what optimizer we'll be going to work on, and I'll tell you what these all things mean. So we'll be going for Adam optimizer, and then we'll be working on what would be our matrix. So our matrix would always be into a list format, and we'll be going to provide one metric right here, which is accuracy. Fine, and now let's go for the training. This is what my model looks like. One more dash. Fine. Now it's my turn to go for the training part. Right, so for training what I need to do is I need to go for simplest thing like model.fit on X train and Y train. Simple enough, nothing else. Okay, so we've gone for model.fit, X train and Y train. And then what we need to do, obviously once the model will be trained, we need to check out for the accuracy. So our accuracy would come from the function model.evaluate. So it will return two things. So first thing we don't need anymore, and the second thing would be accuracy, would be model.evaluate x test comma y test, and then we'll work. Once the code will be running, we'll be understanding everything written right here. So then I'll be bringing up the accuracy. Simple enough. This is our first neural network, and let's run that. I hope everything is so sorted into it. sklearn dot model selection. Wait. Okay. I'm so dumb. I'm using sklearn dot model, and even none of you is rectifying me. Keras dot models and Keras dot layers. I was narrating Keras and writing sklearn. Okay, so it is just taking out one epoch out of it. Now what we need to do in order to make it a better fit, we can go for multiple epochs. So now our accuracy came out to be 59%. Although the data is not so big, we are just having 576 rows on the training. That is it, nothing else. So let's go for epochs. I'll be going for 40 epochs, and let's go for batch size to be there are 576, so let's go for 4 batch size, or simplifying it to 10. Okay, so the accuracy all the way from 59 turned out to be 69, so sharp 10% hike with our epoch and batch size. And you can see right here, it was 59.59375, simply 0.59375, and now it is 0.697, so more than even 10%. If I'll go for smaller size of batches, suppose 2, let's see. Okay, now it is slightly better, 70.325, 70.3125. But what I want you to notice right here is just look at the step size, or particularly what is the per step time taken. It is 792 microseconds. Okay, and if it is on an average 790, 760, 800, 900, and even 1000 microseconds, that means 1 millisecond. So we'll take it 800 on an average. But look at the step size on the previous one. So the step size was actually 180, 170, 160. So what is it? That means now the step size has increased from 150, 160 to 780, 790. It's a big increase actually. And if we'll go for the more previous one, the step size was again 1 millisecond, because we have passed. Okay, we'll discuss about that, what all this thing is. Starting with the data loading. Just give me a second. 1 second only, just wait for a second. Okay, so we'll be going to understand that what is going on, what is epoch, what is batch size, what is binary cross entropy, what is sigmoid, what is ReLU, what is 10, 8, 12, 9, 1, everything written into this part. Starting from the first bunch of code, we have a data right here and the split into it. Now what I want to check is how many of them are 1 and how many of them are 0. If you go for the Kaggle part, we can see that out of total, or let us make something that will calculate the ones and zeros out of it. And for that, I'll just comment all of the things right here. Let's talk about X as a whole. Okay, so we have 5 rows of X right here, and the output is not mentioned. What if I'll go for Y? The output would be there, only one single column, or not just column, one single row with 10101 as the output. Now let us see the total of Y. Okay, or simply I will go for two counters. I'll name them A and B. So I can do the same thing with the help of functions, but I'll be making the simplest logic for it. Okay, so I'll be going for item in Y. Okay, or I can simply convert it to np.array, or not even np.array. I'll go for list Y. I'll tell what I'm doing. Okay, then what I'm doing, if item is equals to 0, a plus equals to 1, and if item is equals to 1, b plus equals to 1, and for any other case we'll go for a default or the mistaken list with the name of C, else C plus equals to 1. Okay, simple enough. And at last what I'm doing, print a comma b comma C. I assume C would be 0 at the last. Okay, so 500 and 268. So 500 is 1, 268 is 0. And so what is the ratio right here? That means A is twice than that of B. Out of 768 rows, simply 2/3 of them are A approximately, and 1/3 of them is B. Let's do the same thing for Y train. Now again, approximately 200 and approximately 400. The ratio is maintained. And for test, the ratio is not perfectly maintained, but yes, somewhat. Now what I want to show is that in this case, the ratio is going so good. But what would be the scenario if our ratio gets disturbed? So out of all the 268 rows which are having the value to be 0, suppose they all came into testing part and none of them came into the training part. Okay, so because the testing size is again 114 plus 78, which is 192. So suppose out of all the 268 rows and with the 0 as the outcome, all of them would fall under the testing part. What I want to show is I'll just go for the graphical representation again. I'll just remove this, need not to go for that. Okay, so what I want is, suppose I have a data set which looks like an Excel sheet. Okay, and I have all the features right here into this part which I'm not concerned with. Then there are labels. Okay, so I have label with ones, and I have label with zeros. Fine. Now what is the distribution? So I have 2, 3, 4, 5 1 corresponding to 2 zeros. So my ratio is that 5 out of 7 are positive and 2 out of 7 are negative. Fine. What if I make the split size to be 25%? So the 25% of 7 is, or suppose 30%. So 30% of 7 is more than 2, and let us assume it to be 2. What if these both would fall under the testing part and rest of them would go for the training part? Now what will happen is that our training data would never understand that there is also something which has 0 as the output. Okay, my training data would be all of positive, and it can never understand that there is something which could be zero. I'll give you an example. Okay, so do you know about tuxedos? Go for a yes or no. Do you know about what is tuxedo?
Yes, sir.
Firstly, I wasn't knowing of it like around 3-4 months back, and this is what I want to I'm just giving my own example. That's not a synthesized example or something. Mehek Raghunathan, I hope both of you are aware of what is tuxedo. If not, no. Okay. So tuxedo, I'll just search for it on Google. Even I don't know the spelling. It is Tuxedo. Okay, my bad. I still don't know about it. Okay, it is some sort of suit. Even I don't know the clear difference between what is a tuxedo and suit, but it is some sort of suit. I don't know what it is. Maybe it is like without tie or something else, but it is some sort of suit. Now, I wasn't aware of this. For me, everything existing in the entire world looking like this, which could be which I can wear with a pant and a shirt, is either a blazer or a suit. Now, there is nothing like tuxedo for me, which is the case for you right now. So, suppose I gave you a random picture of blue color suit, or suppose I gave you this picture itself, and I ask you, okay, so Mehak, what will you call this? So you will say either it is a blazer or it is a suit. Because you do not know about that there is something named as tuxedo exists, and this was me 3-4 months back, and suddenly I get to know about that there is something named as tuxedo, and even now I haven't seen enough of tuxedos matched alongside. My training is not so good simply that I am not able to get clear differentiation between what is a suit and what is a tuxedo. I hope it is clear that what I'm saying, that what will be the end result if all of our training data set would be comprised of only positive results. Is this clear what I want to say? This is known as the mismapping of data, or like unsorted distribution of data. So for that we can go for various approaches like K-fold. So I just name it as K. It is known as K-fold. And what it is. K-fold always asks you for the value of k. So suppose I gave the value of k to be 4. Now what will be the result of this 4 value? It will split whole of your data into 4 parts. So it will split my data into like this part, then this part, and then this part. Okay, I'm having 7. Let's suppose I would be having 8. Okay, and then this part. So now my ratio also turned out to be 6 out of 2. Sorry, 6:2. So this is what K-fold will be doing. So part 3, part 2, part 1, and at last part 4. This is what the end result of K-fold looks like. Now what it will be doing, I'll just clear whole of the mess right here and draw the data again. Part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, and the label. Okay, feature and label. So all the things right here are features, and all the things right here are label. Okay, now what it will be going to happen, I just name these set to be A, B, C, and D. Right, now what will be going to happen, whatever model I'll be using, whether it be machine learning or deep learning or whatever I'll be going to use, I'll go for something like model.train. So this is what my train, okay, it is very different from the dataset, nothing to do with the dataset. Okay, I always have training part and testing part. So there will be 4 instances of training, and corresponding to that 4 instances of testing, with first instance to be trained on A, B, C, tested on D. Second instance to be trained on A, B, D, and tested on C. Third instance to be trained on A, C, D, and to be tested on B. Fourth instance on B, C, D. Okay, pardon me for the writing, and tested on A. Now what is the benefit of using this is that whichever block of your data, so our every block was having 2 elements because the size was 8. So suppose on the worst case both of the crosses lies here, right? And before going to that, I want to introduce that. So you had basically 4 loop or iterations going on of training and testing. Firstly, your data gets trained on one subset, which is n minus 1 subset, and it gets trained on that remaining one subset. Okay, then again trained on some other distribution and then tested on the remaining one, and so on. And you will get accuracy for this one, some accuracy for this one, some accuracy for this one, and some accuracy for this one, which you can mean or average altogether to get the overall accuracy. Okay, so when I was talking about that, suppose in the worst case that both of your crosses lie here. Now what is the worst case scenario? It will be on this particular region, on ABD. I'll tell you why. So suppose when you will first train on A, B and C, so A have ticks, ticks, ticks and ticks, tick right here, and 2 crosses, and again tick and tick. So you can evaluate that, okay, you have trained on both the things and tested on ticks. Then when you will be on this part, you will be having ticks right here, and ticks right here, but this thing you will not use for training. Just see, it is only having A, B and D, and you are testing on C, which is an unseen data for the machine and will give you the accuracy of 0%. Okay, then some 90% accuracy here, some 90% accuracy here, some 90% accuracy. Okay, obviously there are only 2 ticks, 2 rows in each row, in each group. So either you will get 0% accuracy or 50% accuracy or 100% accuracy. There is no 90-80% exist for you. Okay, so at the end you will sum up them, average, and you will get the overall accuracy. This is what the agenda of K-fold looks like. Okay, for now we'll not be going for K-fold into usage, but I can show you that how can we work on the K-fold and how can we basically have K-folds into existence. I'll just write the code for K-fold simply on the part, and but we'll not be merging them up with deep learning or anything. Okay, so for that I don't need this. I need to write the K-fold part. So for that I need to have an import which is from sklearn dot model selection. Okay, I already have the model selection. I can import it from there. So instead of train test split, I'll be using K-fold. Fine. Now instead of this split, I'll be going for a K-fold split with firstly defining what is K-fold, what is the value of K-fold, K in the K-fold. I gave the value to be n splits to be suppose 5. Okay, that means my data would be split into 5 parts. Then I'll say for train index test index in kf dot split what to be splitted x. Now what to do in particular train index and test index? I just want to print that. If I can print that, I can do anything I want to do. Okay, so print train index and print test index. Okay, and this is what I want to do. I didn't get the voice.
Hello?
Yeah.
Sir, in for loop line, there will be a syntax error, I think so.
Why so?
You have
Okay. Okay, by mistake. Sorry. Thank you for that. Okay, that is by mistake actually. Okay, so I'll be going for print train index, print test index, and then going for just any symbol on a random, like, so that you will get that, okay, one iteration completed, then second iteration completed, and let us execute this. It is giving me a big list. If you'll go for that, so first, from the first, it gave me whole of the train indexes and test indexes. Then it gave me whole of the, now you can see that 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 till 153, those which were earlier the part of testing, now they are part of training. Fine. So from 0 to all the way to 153. So this is one of the blocks. So A is on the testing for the first part. B, C, D, E are on, A is on the testing and B, C, D, E are on training. Then you have A on the testing, right here. So you have all the way from 0 to 100, 101 till 153. And from 154 to 307, it would be in the testing part. So then you have all the way from 308 to last number. Okay, and on the testing, you have 154 to 307. That is what it looks like. Now you can make all the different training set and testing set, train them up, and come for the accuracy every time. And this is what your model will look like. Is this thing somewhat clear? I hope I can do that on a subset. Let me have a look. Wait. Yeah, so let's go for n splits to be 3. Now I'll tell you what I want to say. You'll be getting very clear idea into it. So this 2, 3, 4, 5 is the train part. Okay, so our data is having top 6 rows starting from 0 ending at 5. So now 0, 1 for testing, 2, 3, 4, 5 for training. Then 2, 3 for testing, 0, 1, 4, 5 for training. 0, 1, 2, 3 for testing, 4, 5 for testing part. I hope I haven't jumbled the word. If I did, now you can understand that this is the ratio what it is going on. If I'll just go for, instead of 3 splits, I'll go for 6 splits, then everything would be having individual testing results. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for the testing. This is what known as stratified k-fold, when we go for individual items remained on the training part, on the testing part. If I'll go for 2 splits, then 3 for the training, 3 for the testing, and again reverse of that. What is the end result of this? We now have the optimum split for the data. Okay, so commenting up whole of this, I told you that I will not be combining this with deep learning. It will take a lot of time. So now we understand that there is something named as k-fold which can help us to optimize this particular part, and this is the first part which can be optimized, because loading the data has nothing to do with optimization or improving the accuracy. Separation of the column is something logical and has nothing to do with accuracy or so. And the next thing is df dot drop outcome xs1, which is again part of the separation, and then we have done the train test bit. What else we can do in between is we can go for the processing, scaling, normalization, and all that stuff. That also will definitely help us out for the stuff, okay, for improving the accuracy. So but that some or the other way falls under the region of data science. We will not be diving much into it, but those sort of things are also available that we can go for diving the things about label encoding, transformation, feature selection, feature removal, principal component analysis, and all that stuff. If the time will permit, we will definitely go for that. Now the next thing is we have now separated data. Next thing is we have loaded the layer and the model, which is required. I hope you understand why we did this, because we need a model, some sort of model which is sequential for our case, and we need some sort of layers. Okay, so we will be working on dense layer. So what is the meaning of dense layer? That every node in layer number 5 is connected to all the node in layer number 4 and all the node in layer number 6. This is what the meaning of dense, and this is for every layer, right? Then we defined an architecture. Adding the layer is your choice, whatever number of layers you can have, whatever number of neurons you can have. The moment you will be having good quality data, you can understand that you will be able to understand that whether your model is getting overfitted or underfitted or so. Coming on to the next part, what is activation and what it basically means.
So this is
Yeah.
showing an error that pandas is not like it's
Installed.
module not found.
Yeah. So what you need to do is you need to install pandas module.
Yeah, I
And how
did
can
on the terminal and फिर मैंने उसको रीरन किया था but वो भी यही कर
you
रहा
did
है.
on the terminal?
Yeah, pip
You did.
install panda.
Okay. So can you share your screen? It must be the issue with pip and pip3 or Python and Python 3. Share your screen. I'll put it on pause and then we will move on once the things will be sorted.
Just
Yeah. Share me the screen. Okay. Yeah. Just go ahead. So, right, and where you are actually running your code, just run that for me once. Now it is saying, okay, you have import panda, not pandas. So panda is some other thing. It is a different package. Pandas is something different.
so there's a module named panda as well.
Yeah, it is there, and it is a very different stuff. No, no, need not to install now. Need not to install now. Have you installed panda earlier or pandas?
Panda.
Okay, okay. Then you need to install it. Then you need to install pandas and work on pandas.
All right, it's installing. I think you can
Yeah.
continue.
Panda is something different. Okay.
Hello,
Yes, Raghunathan.
sir. Can you share your code? I have not
I
written
will share
anything.
my
I have.
code. Yeah. Okay. You message something like don't know. What is it?
So I have asked that should that's you have name different from shoot places. You have
I
asked
I
something about that.
didn't get it. What I asked?
You have asked that you have shown that uh, the thing like blazer shoot you have taken to something
I think it was when you were asking about the tuxedo part.
not episode. Yeah.
Okay, 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 okay. So there was some language issue going on. I wasn't able to fix it up. Okay, I thought it's a new message. It is an older one. Okay, sorry, my bad. Well, so go for it. This is the code. Now, should we move on, Mehak? The things are sorted, I guess.
Yeah.
Right. So the next thing we have done, we were talking about is number of layers and number of neurons. Number of layers and number of neurons is something which you will get with your experience. Firstly, secondly, no matter how much experience you are, it will always be a kind of hit and trial. But you cannot try all the way from one single layer to 100 layers. No, you need to try between some optimum number of layers. That thing will your experience tell you when you will keep on working with deep learning. And how will you get that experience? Basically, a lot of things are dependent over your machine. Just try to think which particular thing is easy to differentiate for you. A black cat, suppose there is a data in which a dog folder is there and a cat folder is there, and all the cats are of black color and all the dogs are of brown color. Now this is something you need to work on. You need to separate manually. Okay, you need to tell me which one is a brown dog and which one is a black cat, or in general which one is a dog and which one is a cat. Scenario 1. And now scenario 2, you have got all the images of dogs and cats. You need to separate them, but now the dog is of brown color as well, black color as well, white color as well, and all the other colors available for a dog. And similarly, a cat is also of brown color, black color, white color, and all the color available for a cat. Which one would be different? Which one would be difficult for you? Scenario 1 or scenario 2? Just think of it.
Scenario two.
Scenario
Okay.
2. And what about you, Meg?
Yeah, same.
scenario 2, right? The reason is that now earlier we had one important thing, that color is the separator. Now we found that okay, color is not at all a valid feature to talk about. Now we need to separate with something else. So that something else would be the height, health, body structure, posture, facial structure, size, and all the other stuff, like you can understand that. So then depending on type of data you are having, depending on the particular stuff sort of accuracy you want to work on. So suppose you are working on a scenario whether you need to predict, when you need to predict who will win next World Cup, England, India, Australia, or any other country. This is a scenario. And the other scenario is that you want to predict that anything placed on a road, and you are working for a self-driven car. So anything placed on a road is just like a kind of pothole, or it is a kind of normal paper with a 3D printing over it. Where do you need more number of more amount of accuracy or more quality of your algorithm is required? Obviously in the self-driven car, because if you mispredict that England will win instead of India, or South Africa will win instead of Australia, or whatever country will win instead of some other country, you fail to predict the right country, that will be okay. Nothing much loss, you will be facing business loss or so. But if you fail to predict between a pothole and a sticker printed on the road, you might put the risk, the life of the people on the road on risk, and it will cause a big trouble. So you need to be very clear of which domain you are working on, what is the type of data you are working on, and what is the time you are having to train. So it should not be like, okay, you want to train the model in next 15 minutes only. Obviously then you cannot go for more than 5-6 layers with decent amount of neurons. Then you need to talk about what is the significance of 0.001% accuracy into it. If you are working on cancer detection, so if you are saying, if you are saying to someone, okay, madam this or whatever, suppose the name of the person is Rahul, so okay, Mr. Rahul, you I am 99.5% sure you do not have cancer. The person would die with a heart attack. That okay, why not rest of 0.5%? Then you need to be very much clear about that 0.5%. Or otherwise you can go, okay, Rahul, I am very much like, I am 99.5% sure that it will rain tomorrow. Then it is okay. If you are 99.5% sure or you are 99.9% sure, that doesn't matter much. Depending on all that thing, you will work on different sort of data, on different sort of intensities. You will develop your mindset for choosing the number of nodes, neurons basically, and the number of layers. And moreover, there will always be hit and try. So no matter how much experienced you will be, you will always be confused with between 12 layers or 14 layers or 15 layers. You can get an idea, okay, not less than 10, not more than 20, but what about in between? In between 10 and 20, what should we go for? We should go for 10 or 12 or 15 or 13 or 19 or what? So this is something for which you need to go for particular hit and try module, right? So choosing number of nodes and number of layers would always be hit and trial. Coming on to activation part. Activation is not actually hit and trial. Activation is something which should be chosen very carefully and with pure logic behind that. So now why I have chosen ReLU for the upper layers, irrespective of whatever the layer is. Okay, layer hidden layer 1 or hidden layer 2, but I have chosen sigmoid on the last. The reason is sigmoid, are you aware of logistic regression on the machine learning? Are you both aware of that? Can you tell me what is logistic regression?
So it's a classifier algorithm.
It's a classification algorithm. And how it is different from SVM or any other algorithm, right there?
So usme we have like zeros or ones, I think, the outputs.
Yeah,
Like linear
exactly.
regression is continuous.
It's a linear regression. Firstly, it is a linear regression, and a sigmoid function is mounted over linear regression to give the results of linear regression in the form of zeros and ones. Just like you go, you perform in, or suppose it's a kind of election. Okay, so every party, every the the MLA or MP or the representative gets vote, obviously there is no person who will get 0 votes in most of the time. So every person gets vote, but the end result is that this person has won and this person has lost. And this is coming up with a cutoff that if you are having more than suppose 50 votes, then you won the race, won the election, and if you are having less than 50 votes, then you lost the election. But it isn't like that you are not getting any vote or the winning person has got all the votes. No. So it always puts a kind of cutoff. Similarly, like your exam, you perform in an exam. If you are getting more than 40% marks, you passed. Otherwise, you failed. Right? This is what the purpose of sigmoid is, and this is what we need right here, because our data set is simply 0 or 1, is having 0 and 1 on the output, either 0 or 1. So we want our data, we want our neural network to not give us 0 0.1, 0 0.2, 0 0.3. We want our neural network should give us either 0 or 1 for the final output, so that we can match the accuracy and do all the sort of stuff. The things I hope are clear till this.
Yeah.
To you as well, Raghunathan? Okay. Now let's talk about loss, optimizer, metrics. What are the things they are actually? Are you aware of gradient descent? What is gradient descent?
Yeah.
What is it?
Basically, it's kind of like an hit and trial method, except that you have a minimum value of something, and you change your parameters till you reach that value.
Okay, is that hit and trial completely random?
It could be, or you could already have like.
Okay, I'll clearly narrate what is gradient descent with a simple game. Okay, out of 0 to 100, excluding 0 to 100, so you can say 1 to 99, I have guessed a number, right? Now, like which one of you will going to be volunteer for the game? I just need one volunteer for that. Any one of you?
I can go.
Okay, so I have guessed a number from 1 to 99. Now you need to tell me a number between 1 to 99, and I will tell you whether the number I have guessed. So suppose I guessed 10 and you gave me your first number randomly to be 39, right?
Mm.
So I'll tell you, okay, you are very high. Then you need to downgrade the number. Then you will give me suppose 32, and then I'll tell you you are again very high. Then and some or the other way you need to reach that 10. Okay, so I guess the number. Just go for it.
31.
Okay, you are very low.
50.
Again, very low.
75.
Slightly low.
90.
Slightly high.
86.
Still slightly high.
80. 80.
Slightly low.
82.
Yeah, exactly. So what you did basically, firstly you started from what was your first number? 17, I guess.
31. 31.
31. And then the next number is 50.
Yeah.
50 or 51, right? So you took a jump of 20 digits. Then
Yeah.
you find that, okay, still slightly. So then you came up with 75. So you
Yeah.
still took a gap of 25. Then you said 90 when I said you slightly less. Then you took a jump of 15. Then what you did, you found that the number you said has actually crossed what you should be saying. You took a step back and you took the negative of less, like reverse jump of lesser number, and you just fiddle between 72 to 73 to 80, somewhat like that. You fiddle between them, right? This is how a simple gradient descent works. I'll just go for the graphical representation. I hope my screen is visible. Yeah, just clear everything. So we have a graph in which we have the loss and the y-axis. So loss means the difference. So I have guessed for 82 and you said me 37. So the difference is of 45. Okay, so this is the loss. So 45 was your loss. So loss means actual y and actual predicted y, or the actual value and predicted value for now. Just ignore y. And this is what we will be calling as time. or particularly iteration, let's say, not time, iteration, time, epoch, the same thing, the strength of training, we can say. So we started suppose on a random with this particular loss. On iteration 1 we reached a random loss of this one because we were not knowing anything that what is going on our side. We just randomly said a word, we just randomly assigned some weight, and I want to parallelly draw a neural network right here wherein, okay, let's here as well. So we have a neural network like this. Okay, you have some 5-6 nodes right here, 3 node right here, and 1 node right here. Okay, so you have the dense connected neural network and so on, something like this. Then you have random weights into all the connections. Whatever connections are there, there are all random weights. So obviously if you are using this much randomness into your neural network, how can you expect to produce them the good results? So they will give you randomly, because of randomness, they will give you great loss. This is the loss you have achieved. Next, what the result came out to be great far away. Then what you did, you took a big step towards the direction stated to you to go for the lesser number of loss. You took a big step for this particular part. Now you are right here. Okay, and from iteration 1 to iteration 2, or simply instead of making it a curve figure, I'll make it a straight figure. So from iteration 1 to iteration 2, you reached here, right? So the jump you took is something of x units. Okay, I'll simply draw the capital X. So the jump is of x units. Is this thing clear? Am I going boring also? But I hope it should be clear. Is this thing clear to both of you? Go for an
Yeah.
order. Yeah, fine.
Yes, sir.
Now you again find that whatever you said is not correct and is still far. You took from step 3 still more down. Okay, again the jump of x units. Then what you said? You said something like right here. Okay, again the jump of x units. In the next iteration, you reach right here, okay, on the negative side of graph, because of the size of jump to be x units. But do you think ever a loss could be negative? Do you think
No.
a loss could be negative? No, because if the number I guessed was 82, so if you say 80, then you are on a loss of 2. If you say 84, then again you are on a loss of 2. There is no case of loss to be minus 2. So what you are doing, basically you are passing away from the optimum condition, but not in the negative part. You are actually increasing the loss in other direction. So you reached somewhat right here. Okay, so x by 2 down and x by 2 up. Then you found that, okay, wherever you have reached is not the right place. Now what to do? You need to again take x steps back. You again took x steps back and you reached here, x by 2 down and x by 2 up. And then again you found, so you stuck something like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and you are just fiddling among 2 points. What could be done in this case? The other alternative for this is, instead of taking x units to be your jump size, you firstly start with a random one, okay, precisely to be here. Instead of going for, okay, firstly you went for a change of x units. Then you should not go for a change of x unit, you should go for a change of x by 2 units. Okay, so by 2, I just make it random. So instead of saying x by 2, I'll call it less than x units, right? Then again you found, okay, fine, the things worked for you. Okay, it is not here, it is somewhat like right here. So the distance is lesser and you are into this point. Then you took another jump for something like this. You took another jump of something like this. And then if you'll take more jump, you'll go ahead. Now what you found out, that you are not converging at the right place. But when the machine will do that, when the mechanical operations of all the division power and everything will go into that, then the curve will not be something, the curve will not look like this. Instead, the curve will look something like this, wherein your jumping would be first jump, second jump shorter, third jump more shorter, fourth jump comparatively more shorter, and you crossed out, so fifth jump more shorter, sixth jump again more shorter, and at some moment of time you will reach this. Just like Mehak reached the point 82 by fiddling between 80 and 84 for 3 to 4 times. Right. So you just went, you always crossed your limits from the negative side to the positive side. But you, with your shorter spans, you reach the point. This is how the basic gradient descent works. And this is known as the curve of gradient descent. This is nothing but a miscalculated gradient descent because it was done manually. Okay. So this is miscalculated gradient descent, and the jumps I have drawn is known as learning rate. So learning rate would be the change in y corresponding to 1 unit change in x. So you can say delta y over delta x. And why this particular stuff? Because this is only 1 unit change all the time. So this particular height, this x is the learning rate for our gradient descent. This is how our model from the random weights gets an estimation of the things, and this is basically how our neural network makes decision. Now are the magic turning into realities? That this is not a magic going on that you give the data and the model would be able to predict it. No, the model learns everything from the data. It takes the data. So what is the data? What I was saying you, that this is low, this is high, this is low, this is high, this is the data simply. And then from the data you are understanding the patterns. Okay, when I said comparatively, when I said slightly high, when I said slightly low, when I said heavily high, and when I said heavily low, and so on. So these are the things basically which works on the gradient descent. So this was the step size, the learning rate actually, which is turning out to be delta y over delta x, and we named it named as x, which is not this x. Both of these are very different. This is the meaning of axis, and this is the meaning of height. You can change it to h. So right now, right here, you will be having h instead of x. Height. Is gradient descent clear to you? What is gradient descent?
Yes.
Raghunathan, to you?
Hello?
Any doubt into this? Yes.
Yes, sir, I have a doubt. How the
Yes.
machine knows it could be high, it could be low? I cannot.
Yeah. How the machine would get to know? Okay, so machine would not get to know that is it high or low, right? Let's play one more game again. So what you need to do is you need to tell me the age. Okay, so Raghunathan, who is your favorite Bollywood actor or actress? Just
Sir,
name your favorite Bollywood actor or actress.
3 questions, sir.
Hrithik Roshan. So just tell me the age of Hrithik Roshan.
I
According
don't
to
know,
you,
sir. I have not.
according to you, you have seen him, like the physical appearance, face structure, and everything regarding that, the height, health, body, and weight, and everything. Now, just
I think
guess the age of Hrithik Roshan.
44.
44. Let's search.
Yeah.
Okay, it is 46. Actually, you are quite close. Fine. So now you get to know, okay, your loss is 2 units. You stored it in your database. Now you need to tell me what is the age of another favorite superstar of yours.
Hello?
Yep.
Sorry?
Just one more person from Bollywood and guess his age. Just tell me one more person from Bollywood you know about.
I don't know. For
Anyone?
Tamil Nadu, I will add.
Sorry?
For Tamil Nadu, I think Dhanush.
I'm not getting the thing. What you're trying to say? Okay, let's suppose Varun Dhawan on an example.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what do you think would be the age of Varun Dhawan?
I have not seen him.
Any
I don't.
examples? Suppose I say that it would be 35. Let's see, even I don't know. Okay, so I'll just search for Vrindavan age and let's see what will come up. It is 33. So again, my loss turn out to be 2 on another direction. But what would be happening then when I will be searching for Hrithik Roshan for the first time? Then I'll again repeat the thing with optimizing this loss and then going on to the another side, then again optimizing this loss and pointing on the center. Do you think it will work? This way the machine basically understand that what is going on with the loss because you have given the labels as well to the machine. It is not like the machine doesn't have the label. Machine already know the answer, but it is taking the answer, using the answer for optimization rather than for training. So it uses the random weight and produce the result for first row. Okay, so this is my database. Okay, which is having 3 columns. Out of them, one is label and 2 are features, and is having 4 rows. Right. So my machine would basically take any random weights, assign the random weights for these features and produce the value, and the value came out to be 27 suppose, but the actual value was 92, so it is very less. Okay, then we take another feature, improve the weight right here, so that improve the weight, increase the weight a bit more, value came out to be 40. Okay, then but the actual value was 80, still very less. But the loss has decreased now because the earlier was loss, the loss was 27, 92 minus 27, which was I guess 65. Yes, it is 65, but right here the loss turned out to be 40. Then again it will increase the loss, increase the weight in order to increase the next value, and again and again and again. So it will keep on increasing. One moment of time it will cross the value, then it will start decreasing the thing slowly. So and again it will cross the value in another direction, then it will find the perfect match. That is how it tries to optimize. Is it clear, Raghunathan? Mehek, both of you,
Yes, sir.
are the things clear to you for this part? About gradient descent, are we on the same track? Are the things clear? Go for a yes for the last time and then I'll move on. Okay, fine. So we do not have any doubt into gradient descent. Gradient descent is something which we know about right now. So now next thing is to let's come on to our algorithm and let's talk about why we have discussed actually gradient descent. So we had some random weights into these layers and this architecture. In order to convert those random weights into meaningful weights, we have used gradient descent, and into that we have used an optimizer which is known as Adam. So we are using Adam optimizer. What we are improvising? We are improvising binary cross entropy. Suppose I will not give the loss value. Sorry. Suppose I don't give the loss value, and let's see what will be the output on my neural network. Wait. Okay, something like this. It will raise an error that the model cannot be compiled because it has no loss to optimize. We need to tell what to be optimized. Okay, so that is why I was having a loss value here that I want to optimize binary cross entropy because it is a binary classification data set. Fine. Then we have an optimizer that how to optimize this. We need to use the Adam optimizer, which is quite a lot advanced optimizer available. So we'll be using this. And what is our positive metric which we want to show right here with model.evaluate? We want to show accuracy. So that is why we have written it right here. So our model on model.evaluate will return the thing which we want it to return. We want it to return the metric to be accuracy. So it will return us the accuracy, and that accuracy will be displayed. So we are getting the accuracy of this one. Now the next line, what is this epoch and batch size? The epoch and batch size is again the terminology is being used for optimization and gradient descent. I'll tell you what it is. I'll again come to, just remember the value, it is 40, epoch is equals to 40 and batch size is equals to 2. I'll go to my tool, I'll write the numbers here for remembering them, 40 and 2. I will draw my database with the shape 500 multiply by 7 as my feature, and one part to be labeled which is having 500 values. And this is the training part, not this is the training part, not the testing. Okay, not complete. This is just the training part because it is required into this line model.fit, and we are talking about extend ytran. So extend ytran is 500 by 7 comma 500. What would be the meaning of batch size to be 2? It will make 500 divided by 2 batches of complete database, a complete data set, that means 250 batches. That means one batch would be having 2 rows. Okay, so I just separate the rows with a dot, and the solid line means a batch. So this is row 1, row 2, and this whole is a batch 1, then batch 2, then batch 3, and so on, 250 batches. And then what will be going to happen? Firstly, there will be a for loop 40 times. Okay, so I'll be saying for 40 times. A neural network gets to pass on this data from forward to backward. There are two type of iteration goes on when we talk about training of neural network. One is forward propagation and one is backward propagation. What will happen into forward propagation? A neural network assign in the first part, a neural network assign the random weight and gives a forward propagation from the input to the output. Then depending on the output, it will compare it with the actual output, and the predicted output will get compared, and the backward propagation will goes on with the help of gradient descent. Some sort of weight would get modified, just like Mehak did when she took a step of around 30 units in the first part, then 20 units, then 10 units, then 15 units, then minus 5 units, and so on. So she turned her gradient of gap again and again and again. That is known as backward propagation. So one forward, one backward, then one forward, then one backward. This sort of set is known as epoch. So we'll be having forward, backward for 40 times. Okay, forward and backward for 40 times. Inside every 40 times, there will be a nested loop which will run 2 times. Sorry, not 2 times, which will run 250 times. Because our data set is having 500 rows, our batch size is 2. That means our data set would get divided by 2, and 250 batch sizes with each batch of size 2 will be kept. Do not compare the number of batches and batch size. They are just inversely proportional. If the batch size would be 100, then the number of batches would be 5. If batch size is 2, the number of batches is 250. They are inversely proportional. If one would increase, another would decrease. So my data set would go for 250 times. The loop will go for 250 times. What will happen inside every 40 times? So I'll draw, I'll just make it clear and draw the things again. So what I want, I have 40 iterations. First iteration, second iteration, third iteration, fourth iteration, and so on. 40 iterations. I want to just maximize this particular part, first iteration. Okay, so whatever I'll do right here would be the part of first iteration. Into first iteration, there would be 250 iterations. Okay, now I want to maximize the part of this first iteration of this one. Okay, so into this one iteration, so in every iteration, what will be going on? Once the batch will be processed, this batch will be processed, the weights gets modified with the help of back propagation. Okay, we'll go for the forward propagation. we will take two rows into it for forward propagation. We'll go for first forward propagation, first row with forward propagation, and second row with forward propagation. We will find the loss, do all the things required to optimize the gradient descent and the loss. We'll make changes into W, and how will it be changed? Current W will turn out to be W, current W minus some gradient which I call as G, and similarly for bias would be equals to bias minus G, and why I am saying minus, so this will be G2 and this will be G1. Why I am saying minus? Because it could be plus as well if my G1 would be negative. Just like if I said you that you are slightly low, then you were increasing your number, and when I said you were slightly high, then you were decreasing your number. So it could be negative or positive depending on the value of G1 and G2. That is nothing to be considered. So after every batch, that means after every two rows right here, which we had the data earlier, the weights get changed. So what do you think? Is it a good sign of for our model training or bad sign? Will it improve the accuracy or decrease the accuracy? Okay, I'll give you two scenarios. 42, epoch would be 40, batch size would be 2. On the other hand, epoch would be 40 and batch size would be 10. Which one would be more accurate?
Batch size 2.
Batch size 2, because we are changing the weight very frequently and considering 50 so for every batch size 50% of the batch size constitutes to one row. That means, suppose, okay, it is very simple and it is very easy to compare that. Consider a batch of 5 people and consider a batch of 50 people. So the batch of 50 people is less likely to be trained well rather than the batch of 5 people. So similarly, batch size of 2 would be giving us more number of accuracy. So which one would take more number of time, more amount of time rather, batch size 2 or batch size 10?
Batch size 2.
Okay, it will take more amount of time because there will be frequent operations. So for a set of 500, we will update the weight 250 times in a 40 iteration, in a single iteration, and we do this for 40 iterations. So we'll basically update the weight for 250 multiplied 40. Whereas if we'll go for the batch size of 10, then we'll go for simply 50 updates multiply 40. So we'll go for 50 multiply 40, whereas on the other hand we are going for 250 multiply by 40. So it will be 5 times improved. And this thing is easily proving that when we were having the batch size, I guess 10, then the accuracy coming to us, the time taken was 170 microsecond, and when we reduce the batch size to 2, the time taken for a single step turned out to be 950 or 800 or 700 or so, or even more than 1000 and even 2000 for the first part. Okay, this is what it turns out. And again, reducing the batch size increase the time, and by increasing the time, by giving us the cost of time, we get the price of accuracy. Earlier we got the accuracy of 69%, and then we got the accuracy of 79%. Sorry, no. Okay, this is not the case. So earlier we got the accuracy of 59 earlier, even more earlier, right here, with only a single epoch, and then we got the accuracy of 69, and then we turned it to 70 ahead. So you understood the concept of batch size and epoch. So batch size is the size, number of, so batch size is size divided by batch size would be the number of rows after which the weights and bias gets updated. Weights and bias can be collectively called as model parameters. So after which the model parameters gets updated. And on the other hand, epoch is something after which, so epoch is something in which, in simply in one epoch, a complete data set would be passed by the neural network for a forward propagation and the backward propagation. This is what it meant by epoch. Is this thing clear?
Yeah.
Well, so let's come on to our modules. let's see from the starting. We had already done module 1 earlier, we had already done even module 2 earlier. In the module 3 we talked about TensorFlow, what is TensorFlow, how to install it. We talked about Keras, what is Keras, how to install it. Although you might had some experience into deep learning, or you might have written some code into it or executed that. So you already had TensorFlow and Keras installed in your system. That is very great gesture. Then we talked about our very first neural network. Into this now what we have talked about. We talked about Keras sequential model for now. We talked about usable layers. We talked about activation functions. We talked about what is model compilation. Out of it we talked about optimizer and metrics. What is verbose? So what you are getting right here is the result of verbose. What is the English meaning of verbose? Verbose simply means, do you want anything in the form of acknowledgement? Wherever you will find verbose in machine learning or deep learning, that simply means that you are telling you're just giving a command to print everything. I'll show you what I mean by that. So suppose I'll go for a simple installation of pip3. Okay, instead of writing here, I can show you on Google the pip3 version, pip3 verbose. You'll get it. Whenever you will install something, you can add -v at the last while installing. What it will do, it will keep on providing you the logs of whatever going on. So whatever sort of things would be going on into it, will keep on giving you the logs of every single thing. And on the other hand, another thing is quiet. So verbose is something which will tell you what is going on, and quiet will keep it simply straightforward. So we can go for verbose when required. We can go for optimizer and metrics. Verbose is not that much required. It has nothing to do with accuracy or model performance. It is just for the user, that the user will keep on getting that okay, something is going on, the system is not stuck. Then we talked about epoch, batch size. Validation is something what we did into model.evaluate. Let's quit this. So what we were getting is something the result of validation as well as the evaluation. The storing format we haven't done yet. Then we talked about this in clarity prediction scoring, not inference. So our next task would be to discuss about storing format in the next classes, and to talk about inference. So what is inference, what is storing format and all. Then once done, then we will dive into the convolution. So what all we are doing till now is we are understanding a topic. Okay, we are going for the basic theoretical understanding. Then we will talk about a bit more of intuition with the help of graphs and images and graphics and all that stuff. Then we write the code, we execute the code, we understand the concepts and the words written into the code and we are writing the code into Keras framework with Python. Make it very clear. Okay. So if someone will ask you that where you are writing the code, you are not writing code on plain Python. You are writing the code on the framework of Keras with the help of Python, right? And then we understand that how this particular code is working on the backend, what it is actually doing mathematically. I hope the format is very clear to you. And now I am done from my side, and this is completely your time to ask me the doubts, and this is my time to answer all of your doubts. I'll not go ahead into any of the concepts, because we have already covered the greatest of module number 4 as well, module number 3 and module number 4. Once these two three remaining things would be covered in the next lecture, we'll move on to the convolution part and into the images. Yes, Raghunathan.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, Raghunathan. Yeah.
Sir, can you share your code, sir? I still not getting code.
Sure.
I want.
Right, here's the code. I'll share you the file as well into it. This is where I have written whole of the code. Okay, yeah. I've shared it already, but you can see it on my screen as well. Well, so I'm completely open for all the doubts you are having. Just tell me whatever doubts you are having, and let's answer all the doubts. In the next class, what you are supposed to do by your own, you need to discuss about all the things amongst yourself, either in the group, or you can understand the things by your own individually, or however you are comfortable in. You need to go to Google, you need to make a lot of searches and understand what the things are. You need to talk about, you need to understand these topics. And if still there would be any sort of doubt, you can ask me right there on WhatsApp or on Skype, or you can wait for the next class, whatever would be comfortable for you. Now we wrote our first neural network of this particular batch, and we understood all the concepts, all the intuitions, and all the mechanism behind it, whether it be mathematical or it be theoretical. And I'm completely open for doubt, whatever doubt you are having. Is there any doubt, Mehak?
I don't have any doubts right now. Maybe by next class.
Okay, is there any doubt to you, Raghunathan?
Till now, I am not getting doubts, sir. I am not execute that, and I will tell you.
You can execute the code. The code is already shared to you. You can execute the
Yeah.
code. Okay, and let's see you in the next class then. Sure, then let's take care. Bye bye. Have a great
Oh,
day ahead.
bye.
See you in the next class.
Bye.
And whatever feedback from your side would be regarding the particular session, you can let me know. If you have any positive feedback or any negative feedback, you can let me know. Yes, Raghunathan.
So, can you explain more about in depth of various activation function?
I'll come up the in-depth detail of activation function by the next class. In the next class, we'll talk about activation function, storing parameters, the storing mechanism simply. Okay, so we'll be talking about activation function and the storing mechanism, and about the another thing we wrote right here, we saw right here, inference. Okay, so we store the model, we do some sort of stuff, we do the inference, and then we'll dive into the images data set and the convolution. Okay.
Okay.
Fine then, let's go ahead and execute all of your stuff at your own. Take care, bye bye. See you in the next class.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.